We're up. All right, so joining us online today, other than Tara that's manning the commands for the city. In the boardroom here today, representing the city staff, we have Alana and Travis. For board members, we have Richard Walker, myself, Kevin Wire, Don Rainey, Boris Foster, Tracy White, and Nick Fresh. Do I have a approver for the last minutes? I know what through, everything went good. Nick to move. Kevin seconds, and all in favor? Awesome. Did anybody have declaration of pecuniary interest on today's agenda? No. All right, Travis, Alana, I will turn it over to you for the tourism overview and update, please.
Okay, it's going to be a quick one here. On mountain bike construction, we have Pre-Cambrian that will be wrapping up all of their work this week and then demobilizing. So that's been really good. We've got a Holocene that's got one more trail on the current contract, and they're getting close to completion as well. So it's nice to see both parties will be done by the end of July. Strat plan, we're expecting a draft of that later this month, within the next week or two. And then we're going to come to the August board meeting and provide a live presentation on the strat plan. So everybody will get a chance to review it prior to the meeting. And a couple of weeks out, so we get some questions generated and come back to them before they come. Management agreement, Richard and I are just working on a couple items. We have some details from finance in terms of I think we had originally discussed removing the monthly bookkeeping, and finance has proposed removing all bookkeeping from the city, which
is only for our fund.
No, TBI.
Not the TDI.
not the TDF, not anything for that collections. So probably a good thing overall. We're just going to work out some of those details. And then the other one, everybody received a copy of the dashboard report. We've got our MAT numbers, but I'll specify that for May, we're still missing, at the time of reporting, we were missing 3 hotels. And then we're still shy March, April, May from one of the hotels here. So the numbers will eventually catch up. So what you're seeing right now is not complete. So yeah.
Is there interest charged?
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm going to let Alana talk about an exciting weekend that we've got coming up.
So we have been working with the Miss Marie and Neighborhood Tour Train to create a Pride weekend at the end of August. So the weekend of August 25th, 26th will be the Sioux's first inaugural Pride weekend, featuring a themed Pride boat, and then the Agua Canyon Tour Train will be done up as well as a Pride train. So the press release came out this morning announcing everything. The boat will be hosted by the 2S LGBTQ+ group, and then the Pride train will be hosted by Sioux Pride. We're working in collaboration with both of those groups to program both attractions. There'll be music, entertainment shows, and then for the train, what we've done is we've broken out into 3 different car types. You could purchase a ticket on the party car. You can purchase a ticket on a family car, which will have programming for kids. So we'll have authors reading storybooks, balloons, everything to keep kids entertained, and then just a quiet car for people that want to just go and experience the train just as is. So that'll be happening on August 25th, 26th, ultimately with the goal of bringing people in from out of town to experience the attractions. So all the marketing will be rolling out. We received some money through the province to help promote the event. So we'll be rolling that out once the media comes out from the press release that came out today. So ideally, we'll try and keep this as a locked-in weekend for the next 2 to 3 years to see if we can try and grow it out.
Are the ticket prices on the boat and the train have a discount for that weekend?
So the train gave us a discounted price on our end. the consumer end will be paying the regular price because we're going to allot the difference into the programming.
Okay.
So it gives us a buffer to be able to generate some revenue to turn over into the programming on the train, pay for the entertainment and music. And so the train gave us a discounted price and the boat did as well, just to be able to book them. And then ticket price for the boat is $60, but that includes, and that seems to be the typical price for the charter tickets that are programmed. So that includes music, entertainment, appetizers, obviously drinks are on your own. And then on the train, there's going to be a customized menu, so it won't be this typical menu. It'll be catered to this group. There'll be some signature cocktails and yeah, it should be lots of fun. I've got one more update, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I just remembered.
Yeah.
So we received some funding through the city's environmental sustainability program to purchase recycling line containers for fishing for down at the Parks Canada canal site. So over the course of the summer, we'll be going through and purchasing those and installing 7, they're called Clear Your Gear fishing line receptacles. So they look like an oversized PVC pipe, like almost like a periscope. And they'll be strategically placed along the waterfront, along the rapids for anglers to dispose of their waistline, ghost line, anything that they see down there. Serves 2 purposes. Obviously, it protects the fish and wildlife down in the area. And it also keeps the fishing line out of the landfill sites. So all the fishing line that's collected gets sent down to Berkeley, who recycles it. So Tourism Sault Ste. Marie was the recipient of that money. We just flowed it through so that we could purchase those, and then they'll be installed hopefully by the end of the summer, by the time they're ordered and brought in. In time to hit the fall season and definitely there for summer of next year. So it was a collaboration between Parks Canada, Batchewana First Nation, and Tourism.
Very cool.
That's pretty common now. Every bridge is covered.
Yeah, and we're seeing the effects of having all of that coastline in our rapids for sure. You see wildlife tied up all.
One other comment is on, I know we were across an engineer state and then there's feedback, but it was raining. From our staff, there was a comment that there was a lot of, obviously it was Americans, a lot of Americans that still thought the COVID restrictions were still on at the border.
Yep.
So I don't know how we get that out. There's that concern.
Yeah, so just on that, I can share an update about that. So we had staff go over on Engineers Day in was the end of was leading into Canada Day week.
Yeah.
Last Friday in June.
Last year. So went over and set up a Sault Ste. Marie booth to try and reach some of the American market, just to do some exploring, find out exactly these things, what the appetite is to come over, how many people do come over. So they did some surveys, handed out some information. Found the same thing. A lot of them thought the COVID restrictions were still in place. A significant number did not have passports. A large number, and the ones that used to come over prior to COVID have returned. The ones that came over frequently, but a lot of ones that had never been over didn't really seem to have a flavor to even think about it. So the idea was to try and spark some interest, get them thinking about how to do it. And we found the same thing, that a lot of them didn't know how to cross the border, didn't know what was needed, didn't know what the restrictions were. So definitely a thing.
Working.
Yeah, but it was a good way to get some intel firsthand.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Travis and Alana. Alana, you'll be presenting the TDF for Arch. We are.
Okay.
According to my agenda.
Okay. So we have one application in for the Tourism Development Fund. This is for the Arch Great Bucket List Cycle. The ask came in looking for $10,000. Our staff recommendation is $2,000. I'll talk through the process and how we landed on that. So the Great Bucket List Cycle is scheduled for Sunday, August 27th. It's held on St. Joe's Island. And the event brings cyclists together to support Arch Hospice. And there's series of different races. So there's a grand fondo of 100 kilometers, 70K and 40K ride option. This year they're doing a 20K ride as well. The event is geared towards families, cyclists of all ages, and the goal is to either donate or raise at least $1 a kilometer for Arch. So in talking to Arch and the organizers of the event, we looked at their numbers from what they had last year for registration. And this is what they presented to us, 523 locals, regional of 160, and Ontario 120, USA 50. They were not able to provide us with any data related to how many of those stayed in Sault Ste. Marie, stayed overnight. So this is an area that we identified that we need to strengthen and button up with them for sure. The out of town impact using these numbers generates just shy of $100,000, but I put a note in here that the event is held on the island. So with that, it's really hard to determine what spills over to the city. The promotional impact is great in the sense that, you know, they are bringing people in. Arch is, you know, obviously a strong component of our community, looking to support them. We want to try and bring cyclists and runners in from across the province. It does meet that mandate. Budget expenses, so their expenses run around $9,000 to run the event, and the revenue is all dedicated towards fundraising for Arch. Their goal is to reach over 40,000 in fundraising.
Sorry, Emily, can I ask the 9,000 plus the 5,000 for gifts in kind, or 5,000 comes out of that 9,000?
No, that's on top of that.
On top of that.
Yeah. So when we ran it through the evaluation matrix, it shook out at a score of 30, which placed them in the range of, you know, 2,000 plus. Given the fact that it's quite late, the event's in August, given the fact that it was on St. Joe's Island, we went through our recommendations, and we were favorable of a recommendation of $2,000 for some general marketing to try and promote the event. But given that it's coming up quickly, the effectiveness of that will obviously be impacted. We did talk to them about the importance of lead time and how we need to work in advance to try and help to really market these types of events. And that is what, that's all the information I have. Travis, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I mean, I think, you know, if this is a group that wants to come back for next year, we've already discussed a meeting September, October. I think the application is very late. The impact of the island is another concern, as you pointed out. An event similar to this has, I think, has legs based on what we're seeing, like a Grand Fondo style, whether it's gravel or road biking. This one needs some tweaks to make it a true tourism event that's impactful to Sault Ste. Marie.
And what have they proposed the fund? Like, are they looking to do the funding towards marketing?
Well, they were looking for general funding. We are recommending anything that we do provide goes specifically to marketing out of town.
Okay.
Did we ask them why they hold this event at St. Joe's? Is it just where they always had it, or how much scenic? I don't know.
I think easier, both in terms of, you know, you don't need road closures as much. You've got a very scenic, less vehicle traffic, you know, those kind of pieces. But
We did talk to them. Is it pre-COVID?
it's pre-COVID.
About doing something in town, and that was what their feedback was that, you know, by the time you do road closures and whatnot, you lose some of the aesthetic of, you know, the peaceful kind of ride around the island.
Yeah, I think if you were to look outside of this event, you know, you could certainly start in the downtown, go down Queen Street, go through Highway 17B, Sylvan Valley area, and back to Sault Ste. Marie. You know, it's something that could be looked at in the future.
I didn't get the vibe that they're after status.
Zero, yeah. So
I have the same appetite. But that, I mean, ultimately, that's the problem, right? It's, and it's not like it's 5 minutes away. We can set up shop and, you know, we can sue and then drive 5 minutes away to compete, right? That's a 40-minute drive. Theoretically, in good conditions. You know, it's not. It's tougher, it's just a chair. That's right.
What if Arch was attached to this? I don't even know. It would be hard. An event in St. Joe's Island. It just seems to me that that's the draw.
I mean, with that volume of people, you don't think there's many staying in hotels over here?
I would have to see some pretty hard data to see that there's
I'm not,
people staying
I'm
on.
not super familiar with St. Joe's, but there's like Airbnbs and bed and breakfast there, so they must be staying somewhere, right?
Or they're not.
Campgrounds.
Should we know if the regional business is right, because locals would be Sault Ste. Marie, so if regional, if that 160 for regional includes your Echo Bay, One River, Bruce Mountain, and St. Joe's Islands, if that's what gets defined as regional, then you're looking at the 120 in the US.
And because they haven't run this as a event where they tracked out of town visitors, they don't have a lot of data around where they're staying or what it looks like outside of their event. So that was definitely part of our initial conversation, was if we're going to get involved and help support this, these are the pieces of information that we need to be able to effectively provide support and provide guidance around what we can and can't do.
And would they have the, I guess, volunteer manpower to be able to collect that information, that we could say it's going to pay $2,000 for the information? Like, you know, do they have that kind of organization where
I
they
would
can
suspect so.
collect?
I mean, they do have a pretty strong volunteer base, but I can't say for sure. But we did talk, they were definitely open to the conversation around collecting that data. So that would lead me to believe that they have the capacity to do that.
This is all from registration software last year, these numbers.
That's what they said.
I wonder if there's any tweak that they could make, just adding an additional question that says, will you be spending overnight stays and accommodations in St. Marie or St. Joseph Island?
Or at least will you eat?
Is anybody familiar with the event? Does it start in the morning? Is it that?
It does start early in the morning,
Yeah.
and I think it goes until mid-afternoon.
Those are game probably take you about 4 days.
We've all, there's only a couple of, like, the grocery store is not open on Sundays. On St. Joe's, there's not a lot of businesses open on Sundays, and this event takes place on a Sunday. So people are going to be coming back to Sault Ste. Marie.
Or coming the morning, like the night before, so they're there for the 8 or 9 o'clock. and then they're-
So registration starts at 7:30, 9 a.m. start. Yeah. There's. So there is links to traveling, how to get here. It links to our Sioux tourism page on their site.
We've discussed that with them once they submitted their application and they complied with putting.
So how far outside of St. Marie do we?
Well, we go from Sudbury. We go from, essentially Search Mound. Depending on the event to the island. But it's like 45 minutes, call it 45 minutes either direction.
We're collecting that money from.
We are not, but if there's a large event that's occurring. That has the ability to impact Sault Ste. Marie, then we would.
Well, for example, your race was in Stokely.
Yeah.
But the people stayed.
Yeah.
There's events that happen at Search Mountain, don't have accommodations.
Well,
people stay in town.
Search Mound in general, we promote.
Yeah.
And it's 45 minutes at a time, we can't flex that. So, I mean, it depends on the scale. Ideally, we want everything to start in Sault Ste. Marie, or, your event is 20 minutes from here, so it's.
You say that, but could we collect 20 for Search Mountain? from that?
They would have to, I've discussed that with legal, they would have to voluntarily opt in. And, they probably want to do some internal research on that.
We did, when we gave them money.
Yeah.
We said, give me money, but
you need to contribute to the DMF, right? This is before us. And they did, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, they're unorganized, so they wouldn't need municipal approval, I guess.
we've started some of those conversations with them.
Makes it a lot easier for this group to support if they're paying into the pot.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we know right now with search bound being accommodation limited, the benefit is here, but it's particularly as they grow and add more accommodation.
But even just the comfort of having a conversation,
Yeah.
we know they're contributing, makes us all go, hey, at least they're trying.
Yeah.
Putting some of that money back into the pocket.
So I would say we focus on their Ontario visitors at one point, because those are more likely the numbers that we can, the people that would be staying in the city. I mean, a 9 a.m. start, nobody's gonna drive. I would also agree with you.
It's on a Sunday.
It's on a Sunday, yeah.
Say that 99,000 is like.
Maybe I'm soft, but you know, it's a local charity, I feel bad. That's the only reason like we're talking about, because it's hard to want to do like 1,000 to make that make people happy. I would support the 2,000, and the reason is we want to get at the Grand Fondo and Sault Ste. Marie. This is going to be the stepping stone. Something like this, we want to be known as a road cycling safe community. For this organization to put this on in town, it would not be cost effective in order to close those roads. We wouldn't be able to afford it. I've had to close roads for events before, and it was very, very expensive.
What do you mean? Charges for that?
Please, yeah.
You have to pay you have to pay the police to man each of the road closings.
St. Joe's is close, and I think it's within our capture zone, and it's, you know, you're gonna get some beautiful pictures from the event, and maybe we will have a different type of event as a result, but I think it will grow.
I think that we're definitely going to be capturing some of the visitors. And again, the information behind it, I would like to see a tracking clause on there.
We put that on all of them.
On those who are staying in Sault Ste. Marie and how many nights they plan on staying.
That horse might have left the barn. Yes.
Well, not necessarily, because they could probably
Maybe
issue it as registration. Or they could do a whole survey.
Yeah, I think between cycling activities and the charity. Take your guidance.
A Grand Fondo has a lot of legs.
I don't know what that is.
It's like anything over 100 kilometers, like. It's Italian, but yeah, I think, I mean, the fact that they're willing to meet with us post event and talk about how the growth opportunity could be, you know, looking at a charity base, like there's, you know, the Ride to Conquer Cancers are huge, there's an actual brand, the Grand Fondos are really significant. So I think, you know, it's definitely worth the money. It's not a huge sum, and then we meet with them and see if we can build it out. Definitely, if you're able to grow it, you're gonna get more and more people here. So
Could it be sanctioned as a race once eventually as an official Grand Fondo, even though it's a charity, or?
I don't know enough about it. I don't say that.
yeah, I have to dig into that, but I know,
A separate division, maybe?
Yeah.
We're actually competing.
well, yeah, you could definitely split it. I mean, there's that Ride to Conquer Cancer. You know, they'll have different, you know, people that are just trying to finish it, and you've got people that are just, you know, out to race it, so.
And they've been doing it for how many years?
I'm gonna
I
say.
don't think it's their first, right?
No,
No,
I'm
no.
gonna say 5+.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
already kind of established.
It needs a rebranding, because it's like the bucket list challenge or something like that, so you need to kind of lean into. It's like community strong, right? Like you needed to lean into the marathon and half marathon,
Right.
brought to you by community strong,
Right.
and this would be. Grand Condo. Brought to you by.
But yeah, they're not running it as like a race.
There's
Right,
no-
it's not being run as a race. This is your challenge. You're checking off your 100K, you're doing your 70K, off you go. Takes you a day, a month. They're just running it as a. You need to go ahead. Year.
Well, and there's also some marketing aspect that they're already out in the market within Northern Ontario outside of the region as well. There is some marketing.
Yeah, so they're focusing on mostly, I would say, local marketing, which is where my recommendation came in at. $2,000 towards marketing is never a bad thing. In a sense where if you're aligning, cycling pieces that we want to promote for the area, and getting that out to market, putting an extra $2,000 out in, whether it be social posts or radio ad or whatever is never a bad thing to help promote our city. So I think that's where if there's an appetite to support this, that's where we look at focusing is on the marketing side of it.
Do they market anything to the US?
Their marketing dollars are very limited. I think they put in,
Yeah, 2750.
yeah, so less than $3,000 in marketing.
I think that would be to the US marketing different things. Would you find this working with ours in the past that there's been exhaustion on the community to continually be funding March for so many different things? We're all headed there. Let's keep it going. Sure, yeah, I guess. And irony takes up the map. Is it a clever play on words that it's the bucket list challenge for art? Like, do this before you come here. Sort of. Yeah.
I have a question, even looking forward a little bit, how, and I said, I don't know enough about these types of events. How would, I guess, how do we link to that, saying, okay, well, how do we grow it out that we can really have a more measurable effect, say, on the city, or, if they continue, or that would still always be part of the race, or, right? Or are we just buying ourselves a marketing list of whoever signs up so we could have our own race and contact those racers?
I would think, like, there's a variety of things we've got to work out. One could be, looking at what we do the events on a Saturday and have the post-ride celebration in Sault Ste. Marie. Try to anchor it so it's like, yes, the race is out there, but some of the post-race activities or the registration is in Sault Ste. Marie.
Pre-event.
Some of those kind of things. And I'm sure there's a lot more to that. That's just off the top of my head. I think that there's a lot more we could dig into there.
In lead time, I think that's the biggest piece of this, right? If now it's on our radar, now we can start having conversations for next year based on, okay, it's too late for them to do any sort of major changes for this year, but what can we learn from and how do we make recommendations for next year, and then from there gauge their appetite around whether or not they want to transition it into a tourism event, or if they're very comfortable, and which is nothing wrong with that. They're very comfortable in this box and this is where they want to keep it. Then we know that information and we can make decisions based on that.
Yeah.
Is that usually the hook? We'll give you money if you want to get it. And
That's
never been at the table, so we don't know.
Yeah.
So even $2,000 to get at the table is very expensive.
Yes.
Well, just back to Don's point too, the other one that I just thought of is like the Grand Condo in Vancouver starts in Vancouver and now I know there's costs associated with that, but if we're at the table, maybe what you do is the 100K is on the island, but for those that want to do the 200K or what have you, 150, they're starting out at Sault Ste. Marie. Anyways, there's a bunch of stuff you have to look at, but there's probably a couple of mechanisms there that we could draw more people in town. So.
And then a lot of it too has to do with communication with these groups, and that this isn't sponsorship dollars in the sense that you're just trying to get sponsorship dollars. The money that we have is dedicated for very specific reasons, and there has to be an understanding that you are willing to look at changing or morphing your event into a tourism driven event. And those are the conversations that need to happen ahead of the event in advance.
Okay, any other comments or questions with regards to the arch application? Okay, the only other thing here on the agenda is a resolution on it, so I will read the resolution as it stands. Be it resolved that Tourism Tuesday Marine recommend a contribution of $2,000 through the Tourism Development Fund, conferences and special events stream to support the Arch Bucket List Cycle, August 27th, 2023, and then report be submitted to City Council for consideration and approval. Do I have a mover for this resolution? Jeff? And Lauren for the seconder? And I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And that motion is carried. Sorry, Tara, can I get you to update the roll call? Jeff did join us there a few minutes in.
12:10.
Okay.
I thought it was 12:12, but I wrote it down. For noticing.
Any other questions or comments from around the table? It was a pretty light agenda today.
I think that one comment, just, I know we've been trying to inform as we get applications and stuff like that in. Could we, like tell people, listen, if you're not applying within 6 months, you're go on next year's agenda type thing. And the reason I say that, I mean, obviously, we're at a stage of the game where we didn't get to spend a lot of money during COVID, so we have a little bit of extra money to say maybe we wouldn't have another year. So how can we make it so that we're dealing with events that, you know, far out enough? Like I understand there's an education process, you go far out enough where you say, listen, if you're not within 6 months, sorry, but we'll take the application, we'll circle back as you're planning for next year, so to speak.
Yeah,
And make it formal part of the process.
so Travis can speak to this, but there's conversations at the table right now around exactly that. How do we address this? And one of the pieces that we're looking at is, do we change it from a rolling intake to a split intake where you have a March and a September intake, which gives you 6 months lead time on either end? You know,
So the issue that we're just trying to end with right now, Don, is, we can do those 2 intakes, but we're trying to figure out whether or not there's a mechanism that would allow us to do special circumstances. So in the event, let's say, an event in Sudbury got canceled or got bumped, then we could come to the table with TDF offerings for that event. And it's just a matter of like how we work through the mechanism of being fair, how we would define that. But I think staff at this point, if we could navigate that flexibility, would prefer to do the 2 intakes. And at the very least, if we work with the party this year, and the expectation is that they're going to come back for a grant the following year, then the communication is, we expect you to be in market. Like the marathon's a perfect example. Community strong. People are booking their marathons 6 months in advance because they got a whole training program plan at least. So the marketing's got to be out there at least 6 months in advance. And that's a group that we worked with this year. That's a group that have already started planning for next year's event. But so 100% it's going to change.
so if we did, for like hypothetically, what we were looking at was like a March intake and say a September intake. So September would be for all your events, October, November, December, January, February, March. Right? And so you have like a 6 month lead time on either side of it.
I would probably think if you're taking the September intake, that would be for events from
Yeah.
the following March on.
It
Yeah.
would
That's
be
6 months.
Yes. Yeah. Did I say that wrong?
Yeah,
Okay.
the March. would be
Yeah, because the
September.
Sorry.
we're in
no.
the same boat. yeah.
No, I said that wrong.
We don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it gives you the 6 month buffer on either end. Right now, we're saying 90 days, which that's the bare minimum, and that's even tough to get everything through by the time we do all of the approvals and an actual dedicated review of the application, working back and forth so that when we come with a recommendation, we're confident with what we're saying. And then it's got to come here and then it's got to go to council.
And they're looking for money for marketing within that 90 days. So it's like, it's not working.
Well, theoretically, couldn't you still do, say, rolling application? I don't know if it'd be convenient, but saying, okay, if you use the marathon as the example, right? So, okay, your marathon's July 1st, your application's gotta be in 6 months before, otherwise no dice.
Yeah,
You know,
well, then it's prescriptive as is, right? Like you may not have 2 intakes, but you're dictating people that it's gotta be 6 months out. The issue becomes, it all goes back to a degree of fairness and how we define that. Because you'll still get a situation where it's like, we can pick this event up from Sudbury. We need the money to do it.
well, let's face it, I mean, looking at it realistically, some things are more fair than others.
Yeah,
Right, so for example, if you're saying to somebody who's looking for a couple $1,000. To run an event compared to trying to win brighter, well. What's gonna have the biggest impact?
yeah,
And like, if somebody's gonna say, well, that's not fair.
well, it becomes,
Right, that's what I'm saying, like, so yeah. like,
Yeah.
Some things are more fair than others.
it
right?
just becomes an issue because you're dealing with municipal dollars and the process there, right? So the TDF is city dollars and how that's handled. It just has to be very clear based on what we're hearing from clerks and senior staff, right? So.
I wonder if even 6 months is enough, like, let's say, to get approved for something 6 months ahead of the event. Is that enough time to say, okay, now, great, we have the money allocated to do the marketing. Take a month, 2 months before you start getting a market, and then you 4 months before the event. Right? Should it be a bigger window?
Well, it's a
9 months
It's a minimum.
beforehand,
right?
right?
And that's the problem with the cycle. Like if you wanted to do something 9 months out, you gotta wait 3 more months. When that's 3 more months of marketing, you could have done maybe. But you can also have a size of event on type of event. Like you can stretch this out into all kinds, like if it's an event of over X number of people, that requires a lot of work, it's gotta be a year or there's a dollar amount attached. If you're gonna come with 6 months out, the most you'll ever get is this amount. If you're gonna come a year, maybe. Like there's so many different variables you can put in there.
You could provide a framework, like a scoring matrix, we could provide some of the details and it would be like. You will be ranked higher if you're already doing the marketing, at time of application.
Yeah.
So,
I think the other important thing is we need to get the TDF out to the public. We already know that. Because we're not gonna spend the dollars that we've got in 2023, quite frankly. I can't see that we'll ever do that unless there's something that's gonna come out of the woodwork.
we could do a press release even to highlight what we've approved to date in the last 6 months, and for more information, reach out to.
We might have to do that.
Planning an event.
Is there a concern that we're not? Like getting enough of these real things we want to target? I guess my concern if we promoted it, the people that came out of the woodwork would not be well qualified for it.
Well, I didn't want to be critical on that, but I know our strategic plan is we wanted to have 4 events on an annual basis. So that will provide us with dollars for that, but I mean, it's still it's going to be a big sum that's going to be left over this year. We're at July already.
Yeah, we carry.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of that comes down to the vetting process that Alana goes through with these groups in advance. Sorry, I don't. mean to put that back on.
What's true though?
But I mean, some of it is the vetting process. I mean.
Oh, I doesn't want to have to tell people that I can do.
So that's, we can't tell them.
Yeah.
It has to come to the board. And then it's the board.
But we continually work with them, and get them to the point where it's like, okay, this is.
It's fine.
I think the other thing to keep in mind is this is what year 4 of the board.
Oh, the board. Yeah.
Year 3.
Three of the board, and the bulk of the time of the board, we were COVID. So we really didn't learn some of these things that we're learning now on the process and how to apply and all that kind of stuff. Now that we're getting to it, and quite frankly, I mean, even relatively, I guess, new organization, even though that we can use some of our experiences from the DMF partners and stuff like that. I mean, it's probably going to take a good, I would say, and I'm maybe being overly optimistic, but it's going to take a good 5 to 7 years to get into a good role, right? Where you're going to be able to say, yes, this is a good event, and so it's done well, we're gonna continue to support it, or this is, they know what we're gonna expect from them, and they're gonna run with it and stuff like that, and. You know, you can maybe get burned a couple times with dealing with maybe somebody trying to do something that, you know, is a little over their abilities, so. You know, like. We have to have the discussions, obviously, so that we can come up with the process, but ultimately, I don't think we're anywhere close. Or we haven't been around long enough to really be able to say. Okay, well, what is that good process, or what is that good process looking at? I mean, thankfully, we have the resources, we have in Travis that, you know, take on a lot of those responsibilities, right? To kind of help us make these decisions and whatnot, but. We still got a heck of a lot more to learn before we can say, this is how it's gonna go.
And 100% agree, and I think finding that we're just working through some HR issues on it, but if we have the event administrator who's able to kind of be boots on the ground, working with those groups that we think have the biggest potential, then, you know, year one is probably still going to be a bit messy, but hopefully by year 3 to year 5, you've got it. I think the recommendation was each quarter having an event that's like 500 people plus, right? So, and that's what we need to get to.
Yeah.
Plus the bids that we do on top of that, so.
Yeah, luxury right now, just throw the old spaghetti on the wall, see what sticks.
If that covers everything, next meeting is August the 15th, and I will call for someone to be a first mover into a drive. Jeff and the seconder, Nick. And we are 2:20 for today. Thank you very much for your time, everyone.